Welcome to the first episode of Interview Tips, and we'll get right into it.
So, one of the first questions that comes up is introduce yourself. So, it could be phrases, tell me about yourself in a few minutes or something of the sort. So, you want to start off with first explaining of whether you've come off straight from school or college. Even though this will be in your resume or your CV or in the covering letter, you should obviously give them an introduction, since there are going to be multiple candidates that have applied for that same job. So if you're applying straight after high school, you would want to first tell them the subjects you've done and the grades, just to outline yourself, and then move on to career goals. So what do you actually want to achieve, and through the medium of this job, what are you going to actually try and accomplish? Try starting off in a smaller scale to a more macro scale. So, for example, is in a small scale. So, what are you going to do in a specific role in that job that you've learned from school and actually has made you appreciate the job, and actually makes you want to push forward, and then move on to your actual career goal. So, what do you want to accomplish? You want to help people, and obviously, you've got to make sure that you articulate yourself properly when you're doing this. Then move on to interests and hobbies, maybe that you've done in school or in extracurricular activities where you've actually shown your time management skills. Make sure you keep your interests and hobbies brief unless they're specifically related to the job, because the job interviewer isn't going to be that interested, especially since they're going to have many candidates with experience, and you've got to be able to show that even if you've not got experience since you're coming off school, it's not going to be particularly easy for an interviewer to listen to someone talking about any other interests and hobbies and give you that job when it's unrelated to the specific job. If this question comes up and you're applying after university, college, or any higher education after high school, you should start off with, similar to after high school, your grades, so whatever you achieved in your education, or whether you qualified for the last education you just done. Then move on to your interests and hobbies. Again, try and keep this short, since it's not really that related. Unless obviously it is, then try and move into this with a little. Let's talk about this in a little more detail than you would do if these are unrelated topics to the job at hand. Then move on to the achievements that you have acquired, where talk about the achievements in a way that you're actually relating them to the job. Again, this is going to be a theme throughout. You have to relate everything to the role that you have, and you've got to relate everything, your profile, your experiences, and your schooling and your university or your higher education career. You've got to be able to tell the interviewer that you're focused in the job, and you're focused to the job, the tailored job that you have, and don't be vague about the achievements. So be specific and try and highlight the achievements that particular job would require the most. So, for example, if you're going into a job which requires you to use computers and have a use of Word, let's say, or Excel, the most obvious one, you've got to be able to show if you have an achievement or you've done a project in which has the use of Word or Excel, highlight that and actually show them, well, I was able to do a specific task through the use of Excel or Word, which actually propels you much higher rather than talking about other achievements or events that have occurred at that previous education field, which aren't really that relevant. Then, this is the main thing. Talk about a project or subjects that interest you the most, because subjects which interest you the most and which are related to that job or even have interest skills that can actually be transferable skills which you can use in that job and you've actually previously done in a project or a subject that you've learnt. It actually is a much bigger skill since you're able to show that you can transfer your skills onto this job. So once you've talked about your schooling, then move on to your past experiences. Talk about the major projects that relate to you, as you doesn't have to be education. Now there's going to be any relevant experience out of it. Could be any work experiences they've done, any volunteering that you've taken part in. So try and talk about this again. More related to it, the more you should talk about it. Do not just keep rambling on when it doesn't relate to the actual subject at hand. Once you've finished talking about your major experiences in previous fields which relate to this job, you should finish off by just fitting your profile to the role. So essentially talking about why you would be the best fit and finishing off concisely and to the point. To conclude, start off by telling the interviewer about yourself from your past education, then stating your experiences, accomplishments, and any interests and hobbies, and more specifying any hobbies or interests that relate to the job or the roles required. Then finish off by stating how you, as a person, would be best suited to the job.